Alright, is everyone here? Ants!
Yes, sir!
Roaches!
Yeah, what of it?
Rodents!
Let's get this cheese!
Alright, come on everyone, settle down, please. Look, we all know why we're here. We'll be eating like queens when we're through with this. That pantry's finally ours. Nobody can stop us now. Charge! No, there's no way. It can't be. It's Old Colony!
Old Colony Pest Control. Veteran-owned Massachusetts, Rhode Island-based operation with everything you could dream of for your pest needs. Equipped with top-of-the-line gear to guarantee your home is protected and staying healthy. Phone number is 774-400-5993. Give them a call for the backup you need. Tell them that General Red Revere sent you. They handle anything from ants, roaches, ticks, mosquitoes, rats, and more. No wildlife or termites at this time.
Hey, watch it, buddy. We're marching.
Phenom Radio is the home of the hottest indie music. Tune into the Phenom Radio Top 20 Countdown, Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific.
A razor sharp hustle, raise your paws hustle, when the sun...
Reunion about to crack. We got the whole crew back.
Really, bitch? A cabin in the woods?
Now let's get it all in perspective for all y'all enjoyment.
You still a slave to the white man?
Y'all gonna start calling my wife the white man, all right?
Newness, here's the anthem. Put your hands up that you shoot with. Count your
What
loot
we
with.
do on Juneteenth.
Oh, hell no.
Where are you going?
Look for the fuse box.
What kind of house is this? No, thank you.
The blackening?
Whoa! Jim Crow Monopoly.
Shit probably runs on racism.
Pick a card and save Morgan.
What do you mean, save Morgan?
Refuse to play, and she dies.
I think we have to play the game. In your predicament, the black character is always the first to die. I will spare your lives if you sacrifice the person you deem the blackest.
The blackest?
Nobody should judge anybody in here, bro.
You have 2 minutes to decide.
Shanika, she say nigga the most.
Nigga.
See?
Wait.
Y'all can't pick me. I'm gay.
Oh, Clifton. Yeah.
I can prove I'm not the blackest.
Prove it.
I've never seen Friday. I voted for Trump.
What?
Twice.
Big money, playboy, your time's up.
We need a plan.
Don't say it. Don't you dare.
Don't say this dumb shit.
We have to split up.
Your time has run out. It's time to die.
There's a crazy person out here hunting us. You got Rosa Parks on your shirt, right? Would she be sitting down right now?
I mean, that's exactly what she did.
You can shut up.
Made you look.
Why black women gotta save everyone all the damn time?
Made you look.
Yo, stop playing.
I got a gun.
Damn. That's too DMX. What are you doing?
A better job, a better home, a better life. Who hasn't wished for these things, worked for them, and sought a place where they had a better chance of becoming real? For generations, Brockton has welcomed those seeking something better. From those who came in search of opportunity to today's multicultural population that makes us the most diverse community in all of New England. Brockton is a place where homes are more affordable, communities closer. Where a strong and talented workforce fuels the success of businesses big and small. And the vision of a more diverse and equitable America is being realized every day. It's where ideas take root, businesses grow, communities thrive, new beginnings unfold, and the promise of a better life is kept. Brockton, Massachusetts, where better begins.
Time to grow up. You got a problem with your self-esteem and ego. Oh, here we go again. It's time to grow up now.
Quisiera estar contigo y recordar de nuevo todo lo que hicimos, cuánto nos queremos.
I came to do the damn thing, cause I do the damn thing, so I guess the damn thing is getting done. I ain't popping champagne, this ain't a campaign, I ain't running, no, actually you should run. No comparing, clearly you can't hang, such a damn shame, man, you ain't never won. Life ain't a fair game, I'm just an airplane flying through, maybe you should see if you can get you one.
We're out of time. Don't say goodbye.
She was set to come home in 3 weeks. Sent pictures of her bags packed and waiting.
I talked to her that night, and you're not going to tell me that she was anything but happy and ready to come home.
From this video to her husband dancing their wedding song.
Can't make sense of it. It's a nightmare. Every day I wake up, it's a nightmare.
These are military police officers. They knew better. We need a congressional investigation into this, and we also need the FBI to look into this matter immediately, because what we have is the military trying to police itself.
We are coming for justice. Know that. We are coming for justice, and we are Denisha Montgomery Smith.
I know what you're thinking. Is this the booth, drafting the circuits, three-way theater, or the Kevin Jackson show? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I kinda lost track myself here on Whobazoo.com. So, do you feel lucky, punk?
if I can see the N-word. Wait, can I really see the N-word? What up, my nigga? What up, my nigga? Big ups, my nigga. We are my nigga. You pussy ass nigga. Man, f*** y'all, cause I'm that. I'm that.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
This is blasphemy. This is madness. This is the booth.
All right, your boy Sinister One broadcasting live from the City of Champions. You are watching The Booth. A big thanks to my guest from last week, Red Sox DJ MoneyMav, Maverik, my man fam coming on the show, hanging out with me for the whole hour, chopping it up. He's already been able to see some great games. You know, they lost opening day, but then on the second game, they bounced right back with a walk-off home run to win. It was crazy. So the season is underway for MLB Sports Baseball. So big shout out to him. Again, today is First Tuesdays. And again, if you guys saw my post, there's something about the booth in this show. I don't know what it is. It's almost like we've made some type of deal with the media devil, because it seems like every time we do this show, something big always seems to happen on the day that we're supposed to go live, or the day at January 4th is a great example. January 4th, 5th, and 6th. We go live on the 5th. We have this whole episode that was called The Calm Before the Storm, where we gave our opinions on what was going to happen on January 6th. And the next day, everything we talked about, we pretty much nailed it. And we all know what happened. Another historic day. And here we are today. It's been teased, and we're going to get into it because it's historic, and I never thought it was ever going to happen, because I felt that they needed to protect democracy. Rob said, he's the one on this show, Rob said it was coming, but we're going to get right into it. I'm going to let my guys introduce themselves, because there's a lot of people out here right now discussing this very topic that we're going to get into on the legal level. And like I said, I'm blessed to be blessed with two guys who have great credentials. They know what they're talking about. It's not three guys sitting around as armchair quarterbacks of law. You know, I've got two legit guys here who can talk about it. So I'm going to start with my man, Ken Diesel, who's been with me the longest. Introduce yourself and tell me your credentials, since we're going to be getting into this legal discussion today.
Sinister One, it's a pleasure to be back. As always, good to see you. Good to see all of our friends. My name is Ken Diesenhof. My nickname is Diesel, or Ken Diesel. I'm a practicing attorney. I have been since 1992. I have a JD and an LLM, which is a master's in law. I specialize in criminal defense, including, which will be very important for this, financial crimes and business-related expenses. And I've been doing that for almost 30 years.
Squid, let them have it.
Yeah, well, you know, we're no stranger to the show. I think the listeners know who Ken and I are. So I just want to say it's great to be back. I look forward to the first of the month, well, every month pretty much, because it's great to come on the show and be able to have these great discussions on some important stuff going on. So I look forward to tonight.
Yeah, and the timing is, like I said, the timing is crazy. So I want to get right into the news booth. First, I got to mention my sponsors, Michael Douglas Barretto, MDB Electronics. You need a controller fixed or repaired, get it out to him, lifetime warranty. You pay for that, and you get it back within 24, 48 hours. Available now, Viana Marie's music everywhere, streaming everywhere, Spotify, iTunes. Get it, support it, local artists. Viana Marie, it's personal. Also, Tactical Target Systems. They were at a 2A show this past weekend. They were selling some items. I've actually got to get some more zombie targets. So tacticaltargetsystems.com. I love Boston sports. If you're in the chat and you're in the chat with us, there's a good chance you might win a shirt. Also, Viana Marie to the photo shoot with Kimberly Ann Empowerment Photography. Check her out. I have a banner set up at the end of the show, but we got to get into this news booth. In the news booth, beware, 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 people. I got to talk about this because I received this in my email. I'm pretty smart. But there are some people out there who don't. They think this stuff is real, and I'm going to talk to these guys about this one. I received an email. It went like this. I had the United States Social Security seal, which was wrong. That's the number one thing, but a lot of people don't know what the official Social Security seal is. But this one here was dated. It looks real professional. It says, due to the fraudulent activity, your Social Security number will be suspended within the next 24 hours. Now, it's assigned a case number. We are writing to notify you that your Social Security number is being suspended due to the FTC's discovery of illegal activity using your identity in the state of Texas. Your case is returned to Department of Justice for prosecution under the Criminal Code Act 1950. So, Ken, you're my attorney on this. I'm giving you a call. Criminal Act 1950 and other criminal offenses in the state of Texas, including the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002 for 1 count of drug trafficking, Act 258, Section D, Count 2, Money Laundering, Act of 1986, Count 3, Theft by Deception, Texas Supreme Court Code of Conduct 1986. As of today, we have received a legal charge against you. In accordance with our standing operating procedures, law enforcement agencies, we've uncovered 25 bank accounts that were opened using your Social Security number to perpetrate $14 million in fraud. These accounts were used across the whole state of New Mexico for a range of unlawful activities, including money laundering, drug trafficking, and IRS fraud. The department has attempted to serve you several times, legal process, recent known address, but marshals who paid a visit found the house deserted. If you've received this by email, we've exhausted all other means of contacting you. If you believe you are innocent of the charges, you should call the OIG at the number shown below. To plead yourself, contact the Office of Inspector General, Social Security Administration. Signed, Ken Paxton, the Attorney General. So, Ken, you're my attorney. I need your help.
Okay, let's start breaking it down. First of all, if you're charged with a federal offense, the way you know with the statute, it would be a number, in other words, USC, which stands for United States Code, and then usually a 4-digit number and maybe a subsection beyond that. So the fact is, when if they talk about acts, that means that's the actual bill number that was in the legislature, probably the Texas legislature.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a state crime, if you committed a state crime, the Social Security Administration isn't getting involved. The district attorney for the county in which the crime was committed would be contacting you, not the Social Security. The Office of the Inspector General is not going to get involved in this. The Office of the Inspector General is the congressional watchdog that oversees the Social Security Administration. They report to Congress. They don't do this. I'm not sure who within the Social Security Administration would even handle that. Probably, and I'm going to defer to Colonel Resnick about this because he's actually worked closer with them than I have.
Nice.
The U.S. Attorney's Office would probably, the fraud division of the U.S. Attorney's Office or one of their drug units would get involved. If it was Massachusetts, it would be the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force that works out of the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Massachusetts. I'm not sure what they would call that in Texas, in the District of Southern District, Texas. Number one. Number two, no one's going to send you an email. What'll happen is the U.S. Marshals will show up with a warrant and knock on your door.
Or bust my door.
Right. And also, it's not going to be the U.S. Marshal Service because they don't have jurisdiction. It would be the DEA, maybe the FBI, maybe ICE, if it's a customs issue around Texas. I'm suggesting that. But the U.S. Marshal Service would only be used if they're seizing property. They would serve you with a seizure order. And they're not going to email it to you. They email it to your bank. or they put a lien on your property in the Registry of Deeds, and then you get a letter from that. The U.S. federal government doesn't send out this stuff out by emails. They show up with guys in blue windbreakers with gold letters on the back. So, also, your Social Security number never gets suspended. There's no such thing as suspending a Social Security number. This isn't a credit card. This isn't a bank card. This ain't no. Your Social Security number is virtually impossible to replace. I know because I've dealt with people who had identity fraud case. The Social Security Administration, 99 times out of 100, will not issue a new one. It's yours for life. They say go clean it up.
Yep.
Also,
credit monitoring.
With regards to banks, if you use a Social Security number to open up a bank account, they have something called matching service, which means what they'll do is they'll call up the Social Security Administration and say, hey, this person's giving the address here. Does it match the number in the Social Security Administration? If it doesn't, they won't allow you to open up the bank account. That's why you give them the Social Security number. For example, let's say I went to Texas and I went to open a bank account. I would give my address in Melrose as my home address or my business address, even though I'm opening a bank account in Texas. That way, when they ran the check, the Social Security will come matching to me, and they would send correspondence to that address. That's why they do it. So you couldn't open up a bank account using a false address and a Social Security card. That's the reason they do it. And oh, by the way, you also need picture ID and a blood test these days. It's not as easy as it used to be in the old days.
Right.
So A for effort, F for execution.
And the sad thing is, there's a lot of people, elderly people, a lot of people are just super naive. They'll call that number, and then whatever happens when you call that number, God forbid, you're probably history. I-squared, you want to add to this? Because it's kind of crazy that they sent something like this and people fall for it.
Yeah, there are massive scams like this. Everything Ken said is spot on. There's one other warning sign that you could recognize in addition to the things Ken laid out, which is the sense of urgency. The government doesn't tell you you have 24 hours. Nothing works that fast. And I don't mean that as a joke. That is a joke, but I don't mean it that way. It's you never get something where it says you have 24 hours. It takes weeks and weeks. So at any time, what they're trying to do is scare you so that you realize you don't have any time to think about it, and you make the phone call, and then you get, Bibimbap over in Bangladesh on the phone who asks you for your Social Security number, and you're in such a panic that you give it to them, and, they get all the information they need to then actually do steal your identity and steal your money. So a lot of people, this is a $1 billion industry. This is what people need to understand. Sometimes you wonder who falls for this. And, there are a lot of the known scams out there. This is one of them. The Social Security scam. There's the Amazon gift card scam. There's the Apple iPhone scam. There's a few of them that, I've gotten them like 10 times over, and it's the same ones over and over again. But, some of them are fairly elaborate. And the issue is that a lot of people, including, you don't have to be dumb to fall for this. There are some very educated, smart people that panic in a moment, even though they realize it can't be true. They're afraid to not follow it. The ones where they call elderly people and say their grandson has been arrested, and, they figure out how to do this. So the issue that I focus on, I cover this in my classes. And of course, everybody in class, we can get a chuckle about the Nigerian lottery winnings. Everybody's gotten those emails and phone calls. When I get the phone call, I try to keep them on the phone as long as possible, pretending that I'm falling for it without giving them any real information. I give them fake numbers, fake credit card numbers, just to keep them on the phone, only to have fun with them at the end when it's like a cat playing with a mouse. And I finally, they usually hang up on me at some point because it becomes frustrating. I got one of those calls in the car one time with my nephew. He was laughing hysterically the whole time. He couldn't believe what I was saying to these guys. And, it's fun because I know better. And really, at the end of the day, I try to see if I can get information about them, like where they might be calling from. Right. Because I would call law enforcement. I have called law enforcement when when I have enough evidence to give them, because they want that. We have task forces working on this across the country and around the world.
Right.
The problem is that most of the scams, and this is the point, they're not in the United States. They're working overseas. There are huge outfits that are known in St. Petersburg, Russia, in Romania. There had been in Ukraine. I don't know if they're still operating. That was one of the places, but that was, pre-Zelensky. Who knows if they've cracked down on that? But there are plenty of places around the world where they operate and they pay off the authorities and they act with impunity. The question then is, because of the amount of damage they do to American citizens as well as people around the world, what do we do about it? Let's say we can track them down to one of these locations. What do we do about it? These countries are protecting them, right? They're not going to let the FBI come in and make an arrest. That would be great.
Right.
That would be what we need. But most of them aren't willing to do that. And I don't think we should be bribing the governments to work that way. If they're not willing to do it, we need to figure it out. And so sometimes we joke in class because, I say, well, what are we supposed to do? Do you want to bomb the building? You want to light it? People say, oh, we should burn the building down. Well, that's arson. And how are you going to get into the country? It's not a bad idea, by the way. I'm not against it, but it's not practical. But the question is, what do we do?
Right.
And that to me, it's not something we're going to solve tonight. But that to me is the question. And I realize we have smart people in state and federal governments looking at this, but how do you get people that aren't even in the United States? And we need to get them, and they need to start bigly.
Yeah, it's a $1 billion industry. I know my job is doing a lot of these phishing demos and things like that to tell employees, because we have people who open emails that shouldn't open emails. It gets kind of out of control. So even in the courthouses, they don't even allow you to do things. Another topic I got to get into with my guys here tonight too. And I'm going to ask this of Ken. The first story here in Washington. A mother and a 7-year-old daughter were found dead on the side of the road. The boyfriend has been charged. The mother and the boyfriend have had 4+ years of abusive relationship history, which has now led to the mother being killed and the daughter being killed and the boyfriend charged with murder. Down in Florida, a 2-year-old was found dead in the alligator's mouth. The mother was also killed. The father of the son has now been charged with murder. Another case where they go back multiple years of abuse. And my question is I'm probably going to do a special show with women on this, but I got to talk to Ken, who's a defense attorney. And I'm going to ask Rob his thoughts on this. What bothers me, because we had this here in Brockton just a month ago, where the mother was involved with the boyfriend, history of abuse. They get into a fight. He pulls a gun, randomly starts shoots the mother. The son is so scared. The 14-year-old son's scared. He's hiding in the closet. He shoots the boy in the closet, and then he's screaming, "See what you made me do. See what you made me do." I know a lot of people will want to bash me for what I'm about to say, because they're going to say, Keith, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. But my thing is when do you hold a woman responsible in the death of her child if she survives because she stays in an abusive relationship? Shouldn't there be some type of legal statute where you have to be told, you got to get out, your kids are at risk? So can that be done? Can a mother who stays, so my question to you guys would be, if a mother who stays in an abusive relationship, can a mother be charged if her child is killed or so? Or is this something we don't want to get into in the court system?
Well, a couple of things. If I can break it down into two parts. You asked two very important questions, which are diametrically opposed. Number one, can a woman who is known in an abusive relationship, will the authorities get involved? The answer to that is yes. If DCF in Massachusetts, which stands for the Department of Children and Families, knows that a woman is being abused and has a child, they will come in and they will take the child and place it in care of another relative and say, look, you got two choices. Either get a restraining order and press charges against that individual, or we will terminate your parental rights. And I've actually had that happen where, as a defense counsel, where my client has been charged with an abusive crime, where the witness openly tells me, the only reason I'm doing that is because DCF is forcing me, and not they're going to take my child away. So here's that first question. The second question, can she be charged? That gets into a bit of a legal minefield. If the only information you have is the woman was subject to an abusive relationship and knew of the child being abused by this person but simply did nothing, the answer will be no. However, and this is the big however, Sinister One, if she knows about the abuse and by her contact, it can be determined that she's being negligent in either not calling the police or getting the kid out, yes, she could be charged with child endangerment. However, that's a mighty big mountain to climb. And I strongly suggest you bring your capons and some extra K rations with you, because if you're going to be a DA doing that, you better be able to prove that she was aware of it, there was an option, and she was not in fear of her life. A lot of the times the defense would be, yeah, the reason he called the cops, he threatened to kill both of us. So I figured it was better to take a beating than for him to kill me.
So in some of these cases, though, they don't even touch the child. The abuse is between the boyfriend and
Right.
it's a toxic relationship. They never put their
Right.
hands on the child until it blows up into this situation where
Right.
they're both out of control.
Yes.
And you know, that's what I was saying. I don't know if this is something that maybe R Squared has discussed with his students. Also, I mean, like it's a good discussion to have.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly prosecuted or supervised the prosecution of a lot of domestic violence cases. The only thing you could say about them is they're all different. There isn't necessarily a common picture that applies across the board. You've got different types of abuse. You have different types of control mechanisms. You have every state has its own law, so the laws aren't even the same across the country. There's a lot of similarity, but they're not identical. You've got different thresholds for the child services organizations for when they can intervene. So you have to really know what the applicable law is and the services are in the jurisdiction that you're talking about, so that's going to be different. Now, when it comes to those cases as a whole, though, they're very challenging because if you look at the psychology behind domestic violence, it's not just the violence, it's the power games that predate and go along with the violence, where you have an abuser that is consciously or subconsciously isolating their victim, who's supposed to be someone they're in an intimate relationship with, but instead they're, of course, committing horrendous abuse. And all part of the cycle is that they keep them isolated. They don't have friends. They don't go to work. They don't talk to their family. They don't have hobbies. They have very limited ability to leave the house to go shopping. They're basically effectively a prisoner in the home. And they live in constant fear of, when the next beating might be or whatever type of abuse it is. They live in constant fear that they couldn't leave if they tried because he'll find them and kill them. There's so many different psychological theories. And that's why when sometimes you have a victim of domestic violence that after certain, amount of successive beatings finds the will to either escape or to kill their abuser. And then you've got controversy. Ken knows this on the defense side. You have controversies over whether or not these victims of ongoing abuse can claim self-defense. And that's a topic for another day, especially if you do a special show on it. But the point is these cases are incredibly complex. And so a lot of times when you have and I don't mean to be gender specific, but this is the norm that you see, where you have a mom who's lost the husband in one way or another and wants a relationship, wants a boyfriend and then another husband. You have two types. One who doesn't realize that they're in a relationship with the abuser and then they become the victims themselves. Like Ken said, it's very hard and not even a good idea to go after them. You want to protect them and protect the children, but those people are victims, not criminals for the most part. You also have the parents who are not victims themselves, who sort of know and then maybe even do know that their child is being abused in one way or another by the new individual, and they don't stop it. Those are the people who can be charged and prosecuted.
Yes.
And I figured it's tough because I knew when I mentioned it, I said, oh, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say, well, you don't know what it is to be an abusive woman in a relationship. All that control is there. And you do things, you make bad decisions, but this seems to be the norm right now, where we've got these guys who are killing kids along with the mothers in these relationships. And I just want to see it end or find a way to just stop it. And, thank you.
If you can find a way to end it, I assure you there would be an organization 6 miles wide and 10 miles deep lining up to give you awards. I've been doing this for 30 years, and let's complicate the issue even further. A lot of the times you have communities, and I'll include our own, Robin and I's Jewish community, who do not want to talk about domestic violence for breaking up the family. There's a lot of pressure for women to work out their relationship problems with their spouse or their lover in order to protect the children. You saw this very big in the Hasidic community. Those are the religious Jews wearing the hats and the black suits. Horrible problems in that community. There's also the issues of people who are Iwis, people who entered without inspection, people who are not here on a visa or an overstay or do not have green cards or are not U.S. citizens. They don't want to go to the police because they're afraid of getting removed from the country. And that's happened. I've watched it happen, once you get into the system. Also, there are issues of fear within the community, of retribution. I've seen this happen where people in the community will take revenge on this. Well, he was otherwise a nice guy until you sent him to jail. Then let's throw into the added mix of what I would call marginalized communities, what we now call the LGBTQ communities. There has been a horrific epidemic of domestic relationship abuse in that community, and we're only first finding about it now because no one dared even talk about it. And in fact, I've been practicing law long enough that there was serious questions about if a same-sex domestic partnership could be prosecuted on the domestic violence statute. A lot of people said no, they couldn't because homosexuality was, for a while in Massachusetts, and this is pre-legalized same-sex marriage, was illegal. So they could be prosecuted for a straight vanilla A and B, but not domestic violence. And you couldn't get a 209A, which is a restraining order in Massachusetts against a domestic partner and the same sex. In fact, there's a Supreme Court, there was an SJC case that answered that question. The answer was no, because under the way the statute was written at the time, it didn't recognize same-sex relationships as
they
being
had to
legitimate.
rewrite.
That
Wow, that's
has
crazy.
changed. So be very careful when I say that. That has changed, and I think it's changed for the better. So throw all that into the mix. There, you could literally write a PhD thesis, a number of PhD theses on the pathology of domestic abusers and why these women, and most of them are women, but some are men, let's be honest. Believe it or not, there are domestic relationships where the man is the victim. I'm talking about same-gender relationships. They are rare, but I've seen them.
Yeah, we just had the TikTok one back in December where the two TikTok influencers, he was in an abusive relationship and she ended up actually killing him on a live stream. She stabbed him. And it was sad because this Washington one where they said, the officer who was handling the case when they found the bodies, the officer knew of the couple from this county. They were well known and the abuse was well known and documented. And they asked why she never got rid of the boyfriend. And he said every time they went to court to get him out of the house or to do what she needed to do, she wouldn't show up. She wouldn't, she wouldn't testify. She wouldn't. So they couldn't do anything because she kept not showing up at the right time in court. So they couldn't proceed. And now her and her daughter's dead. And then, like I said, the one in Florida, the kid was found in an alligator's mouth and the mother was dead and the father is now being charged. So it's crazy. Let's get into the legal booth. Police union leader in California has been charged with smuggling large amounts of fentanyl into the U.S. This is crazy stuff. Just when you want to back the police, support the police, and things of this sort, we have these type of crazy stories, and this is the type of stuff that they're talking about. You got to get rid of the bad apples. She's a union leader who, represents the entire force, and she's caught doing this. But here we go, 7:30. We got to get into this talk. And it started out last week. Trump announced that he was getting arrested. Put it out there on Truth Social. He said he was going to New York. Everybody was waiting. The clock started ticking. He didn't go to New York on the Thursday that he was supposed to show up. Instead, he went to Waco, Texas, and had this rally where him and all of his MAGA nuts were there in Waco, Texas. He made and mocked DeSantis about asking for money because he's running for presidential, but he hasn't announced it yet, so he was mocking him. But the fact to me was number one, and this is why I'm so scared about what has happened today and has transpired is that when you have a president who's about to be arrested, you decide to host your rally in Waco, Texas. For me, I felt like, okay, you don't support law enforcement. You don't back the blue. Any of you MAGA people out there now who are in my inbox are saying, well, he's about law enforcement. No, he isn't. No, he isn't. If he was about law enforcement, he would have never have chosen Waco, Texas as his place for his rally. This is one of the biggest black eyes in American history. And I'm going to let R Squared talk about this because R Squared on this show, he's been on this show for many years. And one of the things that R Squared has always talked about when we get into this conversation about militias and things of that sort, R Squared has always said they didn't finish the job in Waco, and they should have. And I'm gonna let that open up, and I'm gonna let Rob get right into this and the significance of Trump doing this rally in Waco, Texas, because I don't think people really get it, the significance of this rally being there.
All right, I'll start off saying something extremely, I guess, controversial. Which is no. I mean, it's what you're asking me to say, and I have no problem leading off the conversation being controversial, and that is that in some of these historic clashes between groups, such as Waco, and there've been multiple especially over the decades. There are plenty of examples of this where you've got an organization that is trying to portray itself as a political organization to avail itself of First Amendment protections is actually a criminal organization. And when you're a criminal organization, you don't have the First Amendment protections, at least for your existence. You may have speech issues, but you don't. You're not protected because you're a criminal organization, not a political organization. And so when you've got some of these controversial cases, you've had federal authorities trying to serve a warrant or trying to do other things in the normal procedure, normal things that they would have to do, and you're coming across some kind of a compound that is claiming itself to be sovereign territory and other legal fictions. And so, and they usually start the firefight because they're preventing, let's say it's the FBI or somebody from serving a warrant or what have you. And some of that might be an arrest warrant for a criminal who's just trying to be arrested and taken to court and nothing to do with the rest of the organization, but it doesn't matter. They're looking for a fight. They don't recognize the authority of the government. And, they're not just sovereign citizen movements. It could be any kind of militia, any kind of extremist militia is the same thing. They're not political organizations. They're criminal organizations, and we have ample evidence to support it. And so the ones that actually get themselves into a firefight with the federal government or something equivalent to that, when I said should have finished the job, it's yes. Go in there and get every last one of them, whether it's to arrest them or whether it's to finish the firefight. It's up to them. They can fight or they can surrender because they have no right to be fighting in the first place. You have law enforcement doing their sworn duty. If you don't agree with what they're doing, you go to court and you fight it. That's what you do. You go to court. You hire somebody like Ken and you have a good chance of winning. There are people, it's not, there are a lot of cases out there and not everybody gets convicted. And especially if you didn't do anything wrong, then there's a good chance your attorney's going to present a strong defense and you're not going to wind up being convicted and go to jail. And so, that's what, beyond a reasonable doubt is a tough standard. We've written it so that it's an extremely rare, we wanted it to be impossible, but instead it's just rare that an innocent person is convicted because we have guilty people who are not convicted because the government can't meet that standard. And that's by design. And so, yes, prosecution wants to win their cases, but they know sometimes that they don't have the strongest case. It meets ethical basis to go forward, but they don't, it's not a guaranteed win. And the defense gets a vote. And sometimes they come up with a great strategy and win. And guilty people don't always get convicted. But we're supposed to avoid innocent people going. So the point is, these folks who get into firefights with the FBI or whomever, ATF, they deserve what they have coming to them, right? They should be arrested and prosecuted, and if they want to die in a firefight, let them. That's up to them. But what bothers me is that when you have duly sworn law enforcement doing everything by the book, going to uphold the law and the rule of law, and you've got this extremist organization of one kind or another, they come in all flavors, as you know, gets into a firefight, that is not politics. That is not resistance. That is criminality. It's an act of war, even. And so, yes, I think that when you've had some of these famous encounters, the government representatives, whichever agency it was, should not have pulled back and walked away. They should have finished it.
And what are your thoughts on the fact that Trump held this rally in Waco? Do you find that as being symbolic to that core?
Either
one of you can answer
well,
that.
Look. Everyone who's got half a brain, hell, I'll go down to a quarter of a brain, knew this was a dog whistle to his base, to the MAGA crowd. This is the crowd that whipping up white rural conservatives who think the federal government is trying to oppress them, and that there's a Zionist occupational government or the one world, the new world order, or whatever panacea you want to use. And it was clearly a dog whistle to them. And if I can add a couple of things to what Rob said, when people say back the blue, that's code word for backing the blue against urban people of color, who generally, not specifically, are involved or accused of being involved in the drug trade or other illegal activities. That has nothing to do with arresting white people. I've been a criminal defense attorney for almost 30 years, and I guarantee you, I have represented every facet of Americana: white, black, indigo, violet, Jew, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Shintoist. Hell, I even represented a Yankee fan once. Held my nose doing that. And this goes without hesitation. I get somebody of color charged with any crime, I'm going to hear, this is bullshit, this is what they did wrong, and will quote why they felt that the search was illegal. They may be right, they may be wrong. But they will sit there and say, I'm telling you, counselor, they didn't have probable cause because this, and this. Sometimes they actually have good arguments. Most of the time, it's crap. I get a poor white person in there. They're going, oh my God, I can't believe how stupid I am. Jesus Christ, I need some help. Really, I'm not that bad of a guy. I know I screwed up. I know I shouldn't have been selling the drugs, but can you keep me out of jail? That's all I'm asking. Keep me out of jail. I get middle class or white people. They're the worst. I can't believe the cops are wasting time on me when there are other people out there they should be arresting. I'm a law-abiding citizen. This is ridiculous. The cops aren't out there to arrest people like me. They're supposed to represent the drug dealers and the rapists and the murderers down in Roxbury or Dorchester. Guarantee you. I will never forget this. If I may digress for a story one time.
Go for it.
I had a kid. Well, not a kid. He was an adult, 21 years old. He was arrested for OUI drugs after he wrapped his nice Porsche 911 around a telephone pole. He was charged with OUI drugs, reckless damage of property, attempting to leave the scene of property damage, possession with intent to sell cocaine, and carrying a firearm. I interviewed him. Now, because he was getting arraigned, even though he wasn't going to get a bar advocate for his case, at the arraignment, unless you have a private attorney, a bar advocate will represent you for the purposes of bail, even if you don't qualify. That's not what you say. Okay, so I went down to represent him. I had listened to this guy complain for 45 minutes how ridiculous the charges were. Don't the cops have anything better to do than harass someone like me? Shouldn't they be going down to Brockton or Roxbury and arresting up the real drug dealers? This is what I said to him. I said, excuse me, sir. You were found with cocaine. Oh, that's just minor stuff. I go, it was 16 ounces of cocaine with an automatic weapon. He said, yeah, I've had a gun for years. It's my father's. We go shooting together. I said, great. Then you have an LTC someplace. No, I never bothered to get one, but it's not a really big deal. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Couldn't understand. His father comes in. Starts yelling at me. What do you mean? Don't they understand? It's like, I said, he wrapped his car around a freaking telephone pole, then tried to leave the scene. Not to mention, he said some rather unpleasant things about the officers who arrested him, although wasn't physical, he was just verbally abusive. Not surprising.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way it happened. So when you hear this crap about backing the blue, that's code word for backing the blue against in urban areas, not rural areas, mind you, and don't involve the feds. Aren't considered the blue. We're talking about state police and local police, not feds. They are considered the blue. That's what they're talking about, and that's what pisses me off. Look, we both, here's one, you and I, one of our good friends is a cop in Brockton. Good man. Z-Man and I are about as politically opposite as you can be on the same planet. But I respect him and he respects me. And he's got a miserably tough job, but I wouldn't want his job for all the tea in China. Or all the wings at Buffalo Wild Wings, for that matter. Because I don't drink tea. All right? But, and we know he was shot at one time. Do you remember that a couple years ago?
That's right. I remember that call.
Knock on wood, he wasn't injured. Thank God. Scared the hell out of me. And I hope to God he gets home safe every night to get back to his family. We know his children. We were at his daughter's graduation party, for God's sakes. But when people talk about that, that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about the federal officials who were murdered at Waco. People forget there were federal law enforcement officials who were murdered because they were serving a legitimate warrant and someone opened up with a machine gun from inside a building. Now, I'm going to defer to Colonel Resnick, who has much more familiarity with automatic weapons and handguns than I do, even though I'm pistol permit. I don't think it's a good idea for somebody to open up with machine gun fire through a wall because you can't see what you're shooting at. So obviously you weren't shooting at anyone particularly. You were just opening up and fire and shooting. And number two, I agree with what the colonel said. Cops show up with a warrant, surrender yourself, and call me. And let me take the heat. I always tell my clients, if God-given right to keep your mouth shut, do it. Let me do all the talking. Because anything I say can't be used against you in a court of law. And chances are I'm going to say something a lot more intelligent than you are.
Yeah, and as far as the Trump rally goes, like you both said, I mean, there are two reasons for Waco. One is it is red meat for the base because the MAGA crowd, Ken said it, but I want to say it as clearly as I can say it as well. The MAGA crowd is against the government. They are extremists. They are terrorists. Some of them obviously they don't all fit the mold, but the mainstream, the base, the MAGA base, the Proud Boys and everybody else, the neo-Nazis and what have you, these are all extremists, separatists, racist, white supremacist groups. They don't recognize our federal government or our democracy. They're against all of it. And so they're against the FBI. They spread all kinds of disgusting things about the FBI and the Department of Justice and who knows what. And so the answer is they go to Waco, number one, because they want to reignite that base. Trump wants to say to his base, yes, I'm running to be the leader of the federal government, but I want to break it and destroy it as much as you do. And he gave us plenty of evidence of that with his efforts to dismantle democracy with, some of his judicial appointments and the way he, fired people from the federal agencies and replaced them with unqualified sycophants and things that we have all well documented over the 4 years he was in office. So we know that he has credibility with these people for doing it. Now, the other reason to go to Waco is because nobody was there. And he knows he's getting significantly diminished crowds. Now, the base may want to vote for him in a primary, but he is not attracting the crowds or the support that he has. There was a little bit of noise in New York today, but between the original announcement and now, there was been next to nothing when he wanted daily protests. And today was relatively small from what they were prepared for. And so he goes to Waco because it's like going to a dude ranch somewhere. You're only going to get 20 people anyway. There's more cows than people. So, he goes to Waco because if he went to Dallas, he would have an empty arena and it would be embarrassing. If you look at the area, there are aerial photos from Waco taken from overhead that show how small the crowd was. And so he could say, well, I went to Waco. It doesn't have a lot of people. You could make excuses that way, in addition to the other reasons that Ken started talking about with why go to Waco. So, he's got to be very careful where he goes this year, because the story is always going to be there was nobody there.
Right. And that's one of the topics I'm going to get into after this. So what we're all talking about right now is that Donald Trump has flown from Mar-a-Lago, and he has now entered the courtroom. He's pled not guilty on 34 charges. I've got a quick clip here, courtesy of The Guardian. I'm going to let that play real quick. And this is Donald Trump leaving Mar-a-Lago and getting to New York, courtesy of The Guardian.
Yep, I see him. Got him in the frame. He just waved.
President Trump, will you come speak to us? President Trump?
Oh, that was just
Right, so that was courtesy of The Guardian. That was Trump arriving in New York. And then another story with that, MTG was there. She wanted to be able to protest. And as Ken and Rob were talking about, the crowds have diminished. MTG went there and she pretty much had to flee for her political life because the hecklers and the anti-Trump people way outnumbered the MAGA crowd in New York for this. To the point where she had to be escorted out. Her whole idea of stirring up trouble went out the window fast. But like I said, it scares me because you still have this base that Ken and Rob have talked about who live and push a certain dangerous agenda, and people who are at that tier of government like MTG, that's still pushing this backing. These people scare me. Now, Lauren Boebert, she's kind of backed off since she's got her seat reelected. So somebody's been in her ear and has kind of told her to kind of reel it in. You don't see her by MTG as much as you do. But as Rob has talked about, we've got this certain group of people still on the Hill that you've got to pay attention to. I'm going to let you talk on that, and I'll let Ken give his word. But people like MTG.
Well, first of all, MTG had a surprise guest with her today. Did you see who that was?
Oh, no, I didn't. Who was it?
George Santos.
Oh, Jesus.
Now, look, we all know who and what MTG is. There's no secret there. Now, Santos, he's been out of the news for a while, hasn't he?
That's right.
He was the story for a bit. I mean, I don't think anybody's ever pulled the scam on voters he has before. So, it was kind of an interesting story. But then, of course, more recent and certainly more important issues have pushed him out of the news. So what did he do? He went, he lives in Nassau County. That's just, the other side of the bridge.
Right.
So he went, he went over to meet Marjorie Taylor Greene, thinking that he can get back into the news cycle, back into the publicity. Oh, I'm from New York. I got this. Well, let me tell you something. George Santos fled for his life too. I think the two of them did their Josh Hawley impression, going, "Oh, save me, save me."
If I can add one other thing too, here's the interesting thing. Those two who are big MAGA maggots and hate the federal government, hate the federal law enforcement, who is saving their tails?
Exactly
yep,
right.
the feds. Yep, the feds shielded them and got them out of there.
And for those of you who did not see this, I actually saw a video clip. A friend of mine sent me a video clip of George Santos literally running for his life, and that's the funniest thing because I'm not the greatest runner in the world. In fact, Rob can attest to that because we ran an Army 10 miler back in October, so I'm not the fastest guy on the planet. And God knows what I look like when a 56-year-old kind of chubby guy runs. Can't be particularly graceful. But compared to George Santos, I mean, I look like Usain Bolt. He was waddling away. He looked like he was crying. He got his hand over no pictures, no pictures, no pictures, no pictures. Waddling like a freaking drunken turkey.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was the most hysterical. You can find the stuff on YouTube. It's hysterical. It'll brighten up your entire day.
Oh man,
Unfortunately, I didn't have sound, but my friend who actually heard it says apparently. Well, let me just say this: for those of you who are not familiar with New Yorkers, and as the child of 2 New Yorkers and the grandchild of 4 New Yorkers, let me just say, Boston people are tough. New Yorkers are vicious. They were giving him the Bronx cheer in spades. They made it quite clear that they did not want him there.
Oh.
Not that I'm not supporting violence, which I don't. I think Mr. Santos should be voted out of office and charged with numerous criminal offenses. And I don't think anybody should take it in their own hands and do what they were trying to do to Mike Pence on January 6th. However, let me tell you, good thing the boys in blue, the men and women in blue, I know, because I'll get a lot of hate for that, were there because I think some New Yorkers would have, let's just say, performed a appendectomy on Mr. Santos without anesthesia.
Oh man, and like we said, let's talk about these charges. So this whole thing, this indictment that's come down, is about the payoffs to Stormy Daniels, the hush money. We haven't even got to the crust of the pie of a lot of these things that Donald Trump has been charged with. This is the first of the things that he's been charged with. So 34 counts. He pled not guilty on all of them. Stormy Daniels, her Twitter page and stuff, she's kind of silent now. She actually said she felt bad that he turned himself in. She's singing a different tune now, so who knows? I mean, she's kind of a train wreck. I follow her on Twitter anyway, and she's all over the place. Seems to be sometimes at times able for some parts. But she knows what she's talking about, and she's put a lot of real personal information about Donald Trump out there. But yeah, if you guys want to just comment on this indictment and the charges pleading the 30 not guilty, go ahead.
Okay. I'll give people full warning. I'm going really legal nerd on you right now.
Uh-oh.
Okay? This has been driving me crazy. Trump has not been charged with paying hush money to a porn star. That's not illegal. If you want to have sexual relations with the porn star while you're married and then pay her not to talk about it, well, that is morally, ethically reprehensible. It is not illegal. What he is being charged with is business fraud and tax evasion. Because what he did was he gave a large amount of money to his lawyer, Mr. Michael Cohen, to set up a fake corporation that Mr. Cohen was supposedly financing, not Mr. Trump, and then to use that money to pay a third party to pay Ms. Daniels, and to deduct that money off that corporation's taxes, so Mr. Cohen could take it off of his taxes and refund Mr. Trump. That's the crime. The fact that it was used to pay a porn star off isn't the crime, it's the business fraud. If he had given Stormy Daniels $120,000 in a brown paper bag and not claimed it as an expense, we wouldn't be talking. Okay? So I understand journalists looking for the clickbait. It has the hush money paying Stormy Daniels. No, it's not. Has nothing to do with it. It's business fraud, tax fraud, and lying on state government officials state documents. Because what happened was Michael Cohen registered the corporation with the Secretary of State's office in Albany, claiming he was the owner and the officer when he was not. Okay, and then filed annual reports with that and applied for a tax ID number under that corporation. For those of you who don't know, when you incorporate a corporation, the people incorporated have to make statements under the pains and penalties of perjury. If you lie, you can be prosecuted for that. Okay? So stop saying they're prosecuting for payments to Stormy Daniels. That's not what they're prosecuting him for. They're prosecuting him for tax fraud, business fraud, and lying on state governments.
Which is completely different because everybody seems to bring up the Clinton factor and they say, well, Clinton, and I'm like, but this is different. Clinton didn't pay her off with money from campaign money. This is what people don't seem to get. You know, they only look
That's why I was drawing the distinction. The sexual activity and the payoff, while reprehensible, was not illegal.
Squid, you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, remember, it was a big moment in the presidential primary that Bill and Hillary Clinton had to get on TV together and talk about the infidelity because his stuff came out. It wasn't that people were not silenced. There were multiple women who had come forward and said that they had, relationships with Bill Clinton of one kind or another. But anyway, that's for another time. But just, what we have here is information that did not come out. And as I wrote about that you guys saw in the corridor, the issue was that it wasn't about the affair. People who have followed Trump for 50 years knows he's had 50 affairs. That's no big deal. And Melania knew he was a cheater before she married him. The thing that's interesting about it is, of course, he was, having this relationship with Stormy Daniels while Melania was pregnant with Barron, their son. And his fear was not the embarrassment of an affair. It was Melania leaving him because she would be obviously disgusted that he was not just cheating again, but doing so while she was pregnant with their son, and that it wasn't the affair coming out, it was Melania leaving him during the campaign is what he was really trying to prevent, to keep that quiet, because he was afraid that would be the thing that caused him damage, not the affairs, because everybody knew about that. I mean, the Inside Hollywood tape had come out long before that. So it's not an issue about who and what he is, it's just that issue. And so Ken properly laid this all out. I'll tell you this, whenever you see that somebody is establishing shell companies offshore, say that fast, when somebody's doing that, you already know you're something to look at, right? I mean, what are you setting up all these shell companies offshore? And by the way, these companies don't do anything. So it's one thing that it's a red flag when you see these offshore shell companies, that's just a middleman for some improper transaction. But then when the companies don't even do anything, then it's like a confession, right? I mean, you can't make it easier for authorities to realize what that company is for if it doesn't actually do anything. What did you set up the company to do? A company's supposed to do something. It's a business.
Right.
And so these shell companies that they set up were just to funnel money so that it wouldn't be traceable back to Donald Trump. And so as Ken laid out, that's, it was business fraud, because what they did was they entered, they made ledger entries and everything that was false. And so, but, to me, as soon as I heard there were shell companies, you just know right there that you've got a problem.
Right.
And, the fact that he was using shell companies to make the payments means he knows it was wrong. I mean, let's face it, he's the one. I mean, yes, he expected, Weisselberg and Cohen to figure it all out, but he had to sign the papers, and he did sign papers. You have his signature on the papers for these shell companies, so he knew about it. So he knows about it. You can't then say there was nothing wrong with it. Then why are you using shell companies? Why don't you just pay it yourself? If it was a business, first of all, these are not business expenses. They shouldn't have been using business money anyway. But so why aren't you paying your personal salary or your personal funds or even, if you want to, it's his company, if he pays corporate funds, but he didn't. They had these, shell companies. So that to me, that's what people need to know, because there's no denying that. That's a fact. He had shell companies. The shell companies did it. Now people can argue why, he didn't really tell Michael Cohen. He knew about it. He signed the papers, and the shell companies were making the payoffs that he needed to be paid. And that, you know, you don't have to, like Ken gave us a great legal discussion. If you're not interested in that level of detail of the law, that's all you need to know. Shell companies, you know you're doing something wrong.
And we got a lot of people in the chat. Linda Damasio, what's going on? Heather Dutcher, Kevin O'Callahan, Vianna Marie, Kevin Jeffries, thank you for watching the show, hanging on with us. Again, these are my legal guys, Ken Diesenhof, Robert Resnick. We're going to get into, we got about 2 minutes left of the show. Entertainment booth guys, rest in peace, Brian Gillis, founding member of LFO, Mike Caputo from Boston, Dorchester. Prayers up for you, man. Support for you guys. LFO was a boy band that, you know, came, it was around here after New Kids on the Block. They're pretty successful. Summertime Girls was one of their biggest songs. He passed away at age 47. Also, WrestleMania was this past weekend, but the news on Monday wasn't about WrestleMania. The news on Monday was about the fact that Endeavor, the parent company, the UFC, combined and purchased WWE to become the biggest sports entertainment company, valued at $21.4 billion. This is going to be interesting. I feel like this is the WWE will become the place where retired UFC fighters will go to continue their careers. Also, if you watch WrestleMania this past weekend, there was a young black girl who was a contortionist. She escorted Bianca Belair to the ring at WrestleMania. It's one of the biggest grandiosos. Triple H gave this little girl a heartfelt shout out during the press conference and said that this little girl's mother had passed away just hours before her performance was to take place. This little girl stayed and did the performance despite knowing that her mother had passed away. So my prayers and blessings go out to this little girl who put on one hell of a dance show at WrestleMania. Getting into the sports booth at 8 o'clock, I got to blow along. Belichick, the rumor is that Bill Belichick was trying to trade Mac Jones earlier this year. It's kind of funny that the Gillette Stadium has been on lockdown for the last 25 plus years. All of a sudden, we've got a leak about trading Mac Jones. I think this is a BS story. The rumor is that they were going to trade him away to the Raiders. It makes absolutely no sense because Mac Jones was a Bill Belichick draft pick. He picked him because he was in contact with Nick Saban in Alabama. Bill O'Brien was supposed to be here, but Nick Saban didn't want to let Bill O'Brien go, which is why they went with what they did for an offensive coordinator last year. Now Bill O'Brien's here. Let's see what happens. I think this is a BS story. Some of these reporters are just trying to tear this down. Before we get out of here, let's get into the Biden bombshells. There's not really much going on in the Biden bombshells, but Biden made a comment. Joe Biden said he's not focused on Trump. He says he might peek in and check on it. But let's be honest, people, Biden has more things to be focused on, and that's this issue with Ukraine and China and what is going on overseas. I talked about the chess game going on. President Xi went over to visit in Russia, and they had their little discussion. They had their little handshake and whatever. And then as soon as President Xi goes back to China, Putin announces that he's going to break away from the Russian treaty of nuclear armaments in certain areas, which pushed President Xi in the corner. As I said on this show, he was probably like, what the hell? I was just there, and then all of a sudden North Korea is shooting missiles in the vicinity of aircraft carriers. So now we said, okay, you want to shoot at some of our aircraft carriers? Guess what we're going to do? We're going to send the Nimitz down to your coast. Those who don't know what the USS Nimitz is, look it up, because when they send that to your shore and send the fighters off into the air, R-Squared's laughing. Let them know what the Nimitz is when they send that to your shore.
The Nimitz is a very powerful nuclear-powered aircraft carrier with some of our finest aircraft and pilots on it.
So, Ken, I know you've got something to say about this one. Kim Jong-un, when that pulled up alongside of North Korea.
Well, let's put it this way. I have a very good friend who served on the Nimitz.
Oh.
You've actually met him. You probably don't remember. A guy named Tom Doherty. He's a lawyer. Before he became a lawyer, he was in the Navy. He was in the Navy. Let me explain to you what the Nimitz does. it has one job and one job only, as they used to say. We can help a government out, or we can help a government act. If you get my drift. Let's just say, for those of you who don't know what the Nimitz is, let's just say you took the combined power of the United States Air Force and the United States Army, and you put it on a ship the size of Rhode Island, and you parked it outside of your front door, and then the captain of the ship, or actually it's an admiral who runs the battle group. It's part of the battle group. It's not just a Nimitz. The Nimitz has other ships around it, and they politely knock on the door and said, "Hi, would you mind turning down your stereo before we vaporize your entire country?"
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious because
before Ken got all technical, I mean, there's an even better way to describe this to people.
Yep.
When Kim Jong-un saw the Nimitz carrier group off his coast, he filled his pants so badly they found Dennis Rodman.
No, but seriously, there is more firepower in the Nimitz battle group. As I said before, the Nimitz comes not just with the Nimitz carrier.
Right.
It's got destroyers, got missile frigates, submarine, than the entire North Korean Navy. Okay.
They meant business, and they said
you don't send in the Nimitz battle group unless you're trying to send someone a message.
Well,
and I'm not talking about a note in class. I'm talking guys with bullhorns.
Yeah. Lloyd Austin was sending a message right there. The Department of Defense was sending a message when they sent that down there, because they said they got down there, they stayed in international waters, and they proceeded to perform flight operations, they said. And yeah, that had to have been a sight to see on the coast of North Korea.
Yeah.
It was no more of Kim Jong-un talking about, look at me, I'm shooting missiles.
Yes. You got missiles? We got missiles. Oh, you want some missiles? No problem. I got a cousin. His name is Saul, who'll give you a good price. They're slightly used, and they may be a little hot, but, that's what happens.
Oh, man. Good stuff. And again, like I said, Biden's not focused on Trump. He's focused on what's going on with the Ukraine and Russia and China, and then this thing with North Korea. That's the more important thing people really worried about.
Right. And the other thing I remember about the Nimitz, in addition to having the aircraft and the missiles, the Nimitz also carries a large contingent of Marines.
Oh, really?
Yes. People forget that the Marine Corps is a department of the Navy, or actually, according to the Marine Corps, the Navy is merely the transportation section of the Marine Corps. But granted, it's not a full expeditionary contingent, but there are a lot of Marines in a battle group, and they could do a lot of damage, especially if they're just doing raiding or strategic intelligence or taking out a couple of people who, well, let's put it this way, aren't exactly on the US's Christmas card list. Let's put it that way.
Linda DiMaggio says, I know a guy who knows a guy, and I got to give Linda props. I know that we don't see eye to eye on political conversations, but it's nice to see someone like Linda who comes in and watches the booth, and she gets her education and watches us, even though sometimes, like I said, we don't agree politically eye to eye. But it's nice, and that's how it should be. People come and they get informed and they talk about things, and they're able to have this discussion. Let me get over here and get into my. Get ready to close out the show. It's 8:07. There's the guys who support the show, purchasing my beanies. Thank you for your support. The shows that I produce, Drafting the Circuits, which will be on tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, Oscar Mike Radio, Thursday nights. Maddie C, Sports for You and Me, is going live, moving to Sunday nights. Maddie C, Sports for You and Me, beginning in 2 weeks on the 23rd. But I think we're doing a test live episode this weekend. So be sure now to see Maddie C in his new live spot at 6 p.m. on Sundays, Happy Hour with Lido. Also, the Cooperative Economics Network dinner every Wednesday, the last Wednesday of every month. It's a spaghetti dinner networking night Also, April 8th, this weekend, Saturday, Denisha Montgomery Smith rally. She is the officer who R-Squared and these guys I've talked about with them. Also, Oscar Mike Radio has been doing a damn good job covering the death of her and her family and what's going on there. He's had some very powerful people on his show speaking on this. 2023 Cape Cod Media Conference is Friday, April 14th, WKKL. I'm actually going to be headed down there with Travis. We usually do this at Massasoit, but Lisa Zena Supka is now down to Cape Cod. So we've been invited to come down there on Friday, April 14th. Also, the Sons of Italy Booty Vortex, the 14th Annual Food Drive Dance Party, put on by Perry Palucci, April 15th. Also, Vendor Pop-Up is taking place here in Brockton at the Sound Lab at 60 Skinner Street, May 13th, 1 to 7 p.m. Please reach out if you want to get a vendor set up at the Vendor Pop-Up. Also, the Summer Solstice event 2023, June 21st, 3 to 8. Going to be held at City Hall Plaza, 45 School Street. And Boom Squad Radio every Friday night, open mic night, VFW. And there it is, Kimberly Ann Empowerment Photography. As you see here in this flyer, recording artist Viana Marie is featured there on the left side of the banner. Phenom Radio, 1000network.com, broadcasting 24/7. And I'm going to let my guys say goodbye. I'm going to start off with R-Squared up here on the upper left. Let him say his goodbyes first.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Great discussion. That's why I always look forward to coming back and looking forward to next show already. Be safe, be informed.
Ken?
To all of our listeners, all 12 of you, be safe, be happy. Happy Pesach, happy Easter, happy end of Ramadan. And we'll see you next month. As Rob said, can't wait for it. It's going to be a blast.
Good stuff. Again, first Tuesdays of every month. Make sure you check these guys out. Also, make sure go over to the Corridor on Facebook. Check out Rob's stories, where Rob's back this week is hurting because he's been carrying Ken all the time on the Corridor.
That's cold, man. That is so cold.
I had to get that in there. Rob's back is hurt this week because he's been carrying Ken on the Corridor. But no, some great articles. Share them over at Hoobazoo. And we'll be back next week. I think I got Mitzi Carano on the show. And then SpongeBob, do me a favor. Get us out of here. Take us home.
See you next Tuesday.
Thank you for listening to The Booth on Hoobazoo and HatcherRadio.com. Please follow the Facebook page and subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. The Booth is a Sinister One production hosted by Sinister One.
I've got to start hanging out with friends that are a little more intelligent and understand politics and stuff. It's just that I'm up on this level up here, and all my friends are down here. Me, nah. You guys, nah. Maybe a little more down in here. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
I smoke, I drink, I do my thing. These bitches hating, so you know I got to make it plain. Don't do cocaine, but your chick, my main. We stick together, true forever, yeah, you know we bang. I miss those days, which was easy. If only I made it, bitch, don't repeat. Now that I done upgraded, I've been upstate, and y'all think I'm playing. And I got a hit now for these weak assholes who think I ain't slaying. Try me, and I'll probably end up laughing, cause I never back down. I'm that chick with a clean ass whip. I don't need that shit, I got my own now. I get hard, I get tired of fussing, fighting, guess I gotta crack down. Don't mess with me, cause on everything I'ma have to bring the whole city out.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Hoobazoo.com.
Enter website, enter website, enter website, enter website.